Are you ready to talk about a legend? Frank Frazetta. This guy wasn't just an artist. He was a visual force of nature. The man who made swords and muscles look way cooler than they have any right to be. Frank started his career with comic strips, then moved to pulp magazine covers, making every sword-wielding hero look like they just stepped out of a gym commercial. Conan? That's him. He made him look like a bodybuilder that can lift an entire kingdom. Frazetta is a master of composition, storytelling, and anatomy. Fundamentals that I sorely lack, so I'm going to use this work as a stepping off point to build my confidence and to refine my art skills. I've noticed recently that I compose my characters with very little storytelling, and I drew them in simple poses, standing or sitting with an overcast, boring light source. It's been frustrating to say the least. We are going to look at 3 of his work that resonates with me the most and try to see if they can help me fill the gap in my fundamental skills. Before I start, I want to say that the goal here is to integrate some of his style into my own. I'm not trying to copy his work, only study his techniques. This is Death Dealer. It's one of his most famous work. See how the painting only has one character in a very simple pose? He's just standing there with his horse on a foggy background with really nothing but warm paint on texture. It's as if he just finished battling somebody and he's just looking at you with his ominous glowy eyes. It almost speaks to you. In fact, you can almost hear him if you stare for too long. He's able to tell a story and a vibe that's really hard to put your hands on. In these illustrations, Frank's composition is pretty straightforward. As you can see, there's always a hidden triangle that makes up the focal point of the entire piece. He poses his characters with dynamic postures that really stretches the human anatomy in some cases like this. And in some instances, his compositions are very wide, with characters opening up, showing themselves off to the world. Like his second iteration of Death Dealer. I'm not really that good in posing. In fact, it is my weakest area. This really stretches my anatomy skills to its limits. So, I went to get some help. The internet is a great source for references. With sites like Google and Pinterest, among many others, I found plenty of free images I can use for this project. It took some time, but with the help of references, I was able to pull something like this off. And in the end, this is the pose I came up with. It's definitely no Death Dealer, and I feel like my lighting skills still needs a lot of help here. It's not from a lack of trying, but I think I can do better by adjusting some colors and adding a filter of some sort. Pencil drawings. On my second attempt, I wanted to see if I can sketch and finish cleaning a pencil drawing using his techniques. Luckily, he has an abundance of them that I can look up and use as references. This is the Huntress. To me, this is my favorite piece. Because of course it is. There's a woman with 2 tigers. How could it not have been my favorite? See how he applies that hidden triangle with their faces again? His pencil drawings uses beautiful hatching lines that just stretches wide and it gets to everywhere in his sketches. He does this not only to emphasize shapes and textures, but also to create a shadow effect, a very common technique used in the comic book industry. So, I did just that. At first, I didn't quite like how it looked, and I actually ended up looking at other comic book artists and found that they all had one thing in common, and that's confidence. It's weird for me to say that, since I've been drawing for a very long time, and one would think that I would have plenty of confidence at this point. Though, that may be true in some areas. In this case, I feel like I'm a baby artist once again, struggling to make a simple line. So, I just closed my eyes, trust the process, and applied the hatching lines all over the illustrations, as if I was already rendering this. And I'm not applying them at random, I'm only adding them where I want to emphasize shape, show shadow, and apply textures. And honestly, I was quite thrilled with this effect. I only used it sparingly before, but once I trusted the process of the masters, I was able to figure it out and discover something new that I can do. And as an artist, this is the best feeling ever. I think it really added personality to the sketch. Details and colors. Frank's colors focuses more on muted versus saturation, where he creates this space between the backgrounds and the focal point. He once said in an interview,
"If you want to appear to be an artist, and want to convince me that you're an artist, I don't care how detailed it is, I don't care whether it's less than perfect. If it's original, it comes from the heart and makes a statement that appeals to people like me emotionally, I just love you to death." That's my recommendation.
And I think this is absolutely true. Less is more, and you can already see me apply that mindset into some of my paintings. By using just simple washed out colors for the background and the foreground and saturating the focal point, I think at the very least I was able to achieve that kind of effect. In my opinion, the best detail is in the storytelling. When you discover things for yourself without the artist telling you, that's not only a hallmark of a good painter, but also a good storyteller. A painting says 1,000 words, they say. So I held myself back by using very few colors and focused more on the character. I found a lot of his paintings only involve a few characters, surrounded by a gloom of fire or epic monsters like this. To me, this is what makes his work so unique. In my version, I opted to draw Guts from Berserk. I've always been a fan of the series, and I think Guts is a very influential anime character. So, I just kept it simple. I just drew him standing up, holding the head of his foe that vaguely resembles Griffith. His sword is right behind him, looking like a badass. I also added this red saturated color to make him pop out even more behind this very muted background. From here on, it was just a matter of rendering, and this is what the final results looks like. I don't know about you, but I was very happy with how it turned out. I definitely still have a lot to go, especially in my anatomy, and the goal here is just to have these things off the top of my head. But to be honest, I wasn't satisfied with these things yet, so I went back to the drawing board and see if I can carry over some of his techniques to a new painting that I would make my own. This time, I focused more on details and subtle storytelling, just like Frank's Death Dealer. She's just standing there with nothing much going on really, except for a muted background and a very saturated dress. I also attempted to make these 3 points the focal point, the hand gesture, the face of course, and also the pattern on her dress. I've been meaning to do something like this ever since I studied line decker, but I just didn't have the confidence to do it at the time. Sometimes, you just gotta take the leap. There's definitely something here that I can develop even further. In conclusion, his work inspired legends in the industry to pick up a pencil. To me, Frank represents a genre. Frank is one of those pillars in history that we can all point to and be proud of ourselves as artists, for his shoulders is one of the giants we now stand on. Again, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. Seriously, this was a very fun study to make. And like and subscribe, and have a nice day. How about you? Okay, that's enough.